looking at a business traveler who spent the night in a hotel room that, physically speaking, doesn't even exist. We'll dive into the blueprints, the timeline, and the physical evidence of what is easily one of the most unsettling architectural mysteries you'll ever hear about. Buckle up, because the chilling truth behind 407 is definitely going to make you think twice before booking your next room. Okay, so picture this. You are totally exhausted from a long drive, right? You check into this isolated hotel late at night. You walk in and you're greeted by soft music, fresh flowers on the desk, and a smiling elderly receptionist who hands you this heavy key and says those comforting words, "Room 407, enjoy your stay." You walk to your room, unpack, and crash in a perfectly normal, super comfortable bed. Sounds like a completely standard business trip. But what if you wake up the next morning, stroll down to the front desk to check out, and the hotel staff just stares at you in absolute stunned silence, like sheer terror in their eyes? Why? Because according to the actual laws of physics and the building's own blueprints, the room you just slept in was never actually built. Crazy, right? Section 1, the midnight check-in. Let's lay out the timeline for our traveler. We'll call him Daniel. To really grasp how impossible this whole thing is, you have to understand how ordinary it started. Daniel was driving late at night through this massive downpour, heavy rain, awful visibility. To make matters worse, he completely loses his GPS signal, leaving him practically stranded in the middle of nowhere. Then, just before midnight, he spots an old hotel, standing all alone beside the highway. He heads inside, and honestly, everything seems totally normal. The receptionist tells him, "Hey, you're in luck, we have exactly one room left," and she hands over the key. She hands him a heavy, old-school brass key, and engraved right on it is the number 407. So Daniel takes the key and walks down this long hallway to find his room, and everything is tracking exactly as it should. He passes room 401, then 403, then 405, before finally stopping at his door. Now, what's so fascinating about this part of the story is how aggressively normal the room is. I mean, zero red flags. Daniel walks in to find surprisingly modern decor, a perfectly made bed, a standard desk, and a window looking right out over an empty parking lot. Absolutely nothing unusual about the space. So he gets into bed and falls right asleep. Section 2, 3 knocks in the dark. So the total mundanity of his stay, that gets shattered right in the middle of the night. This is our first real sign that Daniel had stepped into a place he really shouldn't have been. Right around 3 a.m., he's suddenly jolted awake. He hears 3 slow, deliberate knocks at his door. Knock, knock, knock. He groggily gets out of bed, walks over, and opens the door. But nobody's there. Just a completely empty, quiet hallway. Thinking it's probably just a confused guest looking for their own room, he simply shuts the door and goes back to bed. Section 3. The morning after anomaly. But the real mystery doesn't actually kick off in the dark. It really begins when the sun comes up and Daniel heads down to the front desk to check out. This is where reality literally begins to unravel. When he casually tells the receptionist, "Hey, I was in 407, her warm, polite smile just drops, completely disappears. She quietly calls for the manager, and within minutes, you've got several employees gathered around just staring at him. Daniel actually hears one of them whisper in shock, "That's impossible." And honestly, you can't blame them for being terrified. The manager comes out and actually pulls out the hotel's floor plan to prove a point. The rooms count up completely normally on the map: 401, 402, 403, 404, 405, 406, and then the hallway abruptly ends. It just hits a storage closet. There is no room 407 on that map. It does not exist. Daniel thinks they're messing with him, right? He laughs it off and insists, "Look, she handed me the key herself last night." But when he reaches into his pocket to pull it out, the heavy brass key is just gone, vanished. And to make this even weirder, the receptionist slowly pulls open a drawer at the front desk. Inside, there are keys for every single room in the entire hotel, except 407. Section 4. Blueprints and glitches. Okay, so the crucial point here is figuring out what on earth actually happened in that hallway. Since physical logic is clearly breaking down, the manager and investigators pull the hotel's security tapes to trace Daniel's exact steps. And what they find is chilling. In the footage, you clearly see Daniel enter the hallway and walk past room 405. But then, there's this massive, unexplainable 10-second gap. The footage just completely glitches out, total static. And when the video finally cuts back in, Daniel is walking back from the exact opposite direction. It literally looks as if the physical space of the hallway just folded in on itself and swallowed him whole. Taking even deeper into this madness, the manager contacts the original architect of the building. And this is where the history completely contradicts the present reality. It turns out, 40 years ago, when the original blueprints were drawn up, Room 407 was in fact planned. It was supposed to be built, but for reasons totally lost to time, it was scrapped from the plans before construction even started. It was never actually built into the physical hotel. Section 5. The Walled-Off Secret. Now, let's see how this builds into something even more inexplicable. This is physical evidence uncovered weeks later during a hotel renovation. A demolition crew is brought in to do some work, and while they're tearing down walls near room 405, they break through into a hidden, sealed-off space. Now get this. The space is exactly the size and dimensions of a standard hotel guest room. But inside, no modern decor, no perfectly made bed, no desk. In fact, there weren't even any doors leading in or out of this space. It was literally nothing but a box of bare concrete. Actually, scratch that. I shouldn't say it was entirely empty. Because sitting all alone, right in the exact center of this sealed, impossible concrete box, the demolition crew found one single object, an old brass room key. And engraved right on that key was the number 407. Section 6. The Legend of 407. This chilling discovery, finding that key trapped in a concrete tomb, completely transformed Daniel's bizarre night from a weird glitch into an enduring, terrifying urban legend. And it's a legend that still haunts the hotel today. Travelers actually still claim that certain triggers cause the phenomenon to re-emerge. Like if there's heavy rain, guests swear that the long hallway stretches just a little bit longer than it physically should. And if you happen to be the very last guest to check in for the night, well, you just might find the receptionist quietly sliding a heavy brass key across the counter towards you. The legend basically serves as a warning, because if the conditions are exactly right and you arrive late enough, you just might hear these exact chilling words. Room 407, it's waiting for you. Which leaves us with this final, unforgettable question. Did Daniel actually spend the night in a room that completely defies reality and never existed? Or did that hallway glitch allow him to briefly enter a place that was never, ever meant to be found? I really want to hear your theories on how this is even possible. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And hey, thanks for joining me for this explainer.